Are you ready for what could be the most difficult period in modern history? The warning signs are everywhere: economic instability, supply chain breakdowns, and global tensions. And by September 1st, 2025, shortages could hit harder than anything we saw during the pandemic. This isn't fear-mongering, it's reality-based preparation. Welcome back to the channel where we turn uncertainty into confidence. Today I'm revealing the 11 survival food items you must secure before September 1st, 2025. I've analyzed government reports, spoken with industry experts, and uncovered trends most people are ignoring. The information I'll share could be the difference between your family thriving or going hungry when shelves start to empty. Stay tuned, because item number 8 is something almost every prepper overlooks, yet it could make all the difference. Let's dive in. Item number 1, wheat berries. Now I know what you're thinking. Wheat berries? That sounds complicated. But hear me out, because this could be the most important food decision you make this year. Wheat berries are whole wheat kernels before they're processed into flour. They're basically wheat in its most natural, longest-lasting form. Here's why wheat berries are absolute gold in your emergency pantry. First, they last up to 30 years when stored properly. That's not a typo. 3 decades of food security sitting quietly in your storage area. Second, they're incredibly versatile. You can grind them into fresh flour for baking bread, cook them like rice for hearty grain bowls, or even sprout them for fresh nutrition when vegetables aren't available. But here's where it gets really interesting. Wheat berries contain all the nutrients that get stripped away when wheat becomes white flour. We're talking B vitamins, fiber, protein, and essential minerals. In a crisis situation, that nutritional density could mean the difference between maintaining your health and energy versus feeling weak and depleted. The storage is surprisingly simple. Keep them in airtight containers away from light and moisture. Food-grade buckets with gamma seal lids work perfectly. Add some bay leaves to deter insects naturally. I personally store mine in multiple smaller containers rather than one massive bucket. This way I can access what I need without exposing my entire supply to air and moisture. Now here's the reality check most people need to hear. Global wheat supplies are under serious pressure right now. Major exporting countries are implementing restrictions to protect their domestic supplies. Prices have already jumped 25% in some regions, and that's before the September timeline I mentioned. The smart preppers are quietly stocking up now while wheat berries are still reasonably priced and available. How much should you store? Plan for about 150 pounds per person per year if wheat products are a regular part of your diet. That might sound like a lot, but remember, this replaces all the bread, pasta, and baked goods you normally buy. For a family of 4, you're looking at 600 pounds total. Spread that purchase over several months so you're not creating a financial strain. Here's a pro tip that most people miss. Invest in a quality grain mill. Hand crank models work even without electricity. Being able to turn your wheat berries into fresh flour gives you incredible flexibility for baking and cooking. Fresh ground flour tastes amazing compared to store-bought flour that's been sitting on shelves for months. Item number 2, freeze-dried meats. Let's talk about protein because when stress levels are high and physical demands increase, your body needs significantly more protein than normal. Freeze-dried meats are the ultimate protein insurance policy. Unlike canned meats that can last a few years, properly stored freeze-dried meats maintain their nutritional value and taste for 25 to 30 years. The process of freeze-drying removes moisture while preserving the cellular structure of the meat. This means when you rehydrate it, you get texture and flavor that's remarkably close to fresh meat. I've done taste tests with freeze-dried chicken, beef, and turkey, and honestly, once rehydrated and seasoned, most people can't tell the difference. But freeze-dried meats offer advantages that fresh meat simply cannot match. 0 refrigeration required, lightweight for storage and transport, immune to power outages that would spoil frozen meat. And here's something most people don't consider. They rehydrate with any liquid. Water, broth, even coconut milk. This flexibility becomes crucial when you're trying to create variety in your emergency meals. The major downside is cost. Quality freeze-dried meats are expensive up front. But here's how I think about it. Compare the cost per serving to restaurant meals or even high-quality fresh meat. When you factor in the 30-year shelf life, the cost per serving over time becomes quite reasonable. Plus, you're buying insurance against food shortages and price spikes. Storage couldn't be simpler. Keep the sealed packages in a cool, dry place away from direct sunlight. Many brands come in nitrogen-flushed packaging that maintains freshness until opened. Once opened, use within a reasonable time frame or transfer to airtight containers. Here's what I recommend for a family of 4. Start with about 20 pounds of mixed freeze-dried meats. Get variety, chicken, beef, ground turkey, even some bacon bits for flavoring. This gives you protein options for about 40 meals, which covers you during the initial phase of any supply disruption while you figure out longer-term solutions. The rehydration process is straightforward. Usually it's a 1-to-1 ratio with warm water. Let it sit for about 10 minutes, then use it exactly like you would fresh cooked meat. Add it to pasta, rice dishes, soups, or eat it straight. The versatility is impressive once you start experimenting. Item number 3, coconut oil. Most people think of coconut oil as just another cooking fat, but in survival situations, it becomes a multi-purpose powerhouse that could literally save your life. Coconut oil has a shelf life of up to 5 years at room temperature, longer if stored properly in cool conditions. But shelf life is just the beginning of why this belongs in every survival pantry. Coconut oil is packed with medium-chain triglycerides, which your body converts to energy more efficiently than other fats. In high-stress situations when your body is burning through calories rapidly, this efficient energy conversion becomes critically important. Plus, coconut oil has natural antibacterial and antifungal properties, making it useful for basic medical care when professional help isn't available. Here's where coconut oil gets really interesting for preppers. It's stable at high temperatures, making it perfect for cooking and food preservation. You can use it to seal and preserve other foods. It works as a natural moisturizer for skin that gets dry and cracked during stressful times. Some people even use it for basic dental care, oil pulling to maintain oral health when regular dental supplies run low. The storage requirements are minimal. Keep it in airtight containers away from strong light and heat sources. Glass jars work perfectly, but food-grade plastic containers are fine too. Coconut oil naturally solidifies at cooler temperatures and liquefies when warm. This is completely normal and doesn't affect its quality or shelf life. But here's the economic reality we need to discuss. Coconut oil prices have been climbing steadily due to supply chain issues in major producing countries like the Philippines and Indonesia. Weather disruptions and shipping delays are creating shortages that ripple through global markets. The time to stock up is now while it's still readily available. How much should you store? I recommend at least 1 gallon per person per year. This covers cooking needs, potential medicinal uses, and gives you some extra for bartering if it comes to that. For most families, starting with 2 or 3 gallons provides a solid foundation you can build on over time. Quality matters when selecting coconut oil for long-term storage. Look for virgin or extra virgin coconut oil that's been minimally processed. Avoid refined versions that have been chemically treated, as these don't store as well and lack many of the beneficial properties you want in a survival situation. The extra cost upfront pays dividends in shelf life and versatility. Item number 4, apple cider vinegar. Here's something that will surprise most people watching this video. Apple cider vinegar isn't just for salad dressings. In a survival scenario, it becomes one of your most valuable multi-purpose tools. Raw, unfiltered apple cider vinegar with the mother intact can last indefinitely when stored properly. We're talking decades of shelf life for something that costs just a few dollars per bottle. The applications are mind-blowing once you start thinking beyond cooking. Apple cider vinegar is a natural preservative that can extend the life of other foods. It's a powerful cleaning agent that can sanitize surfaces without harsh chemicals. It helps maintain pH balance in your body during times of dietary stress. Some people use it for basic wound care, though I always recommend consulting medical professionals when possible. But here's where it gets really practical for food storage. Apple cider vinegar can make questionable water safer to drink. A few tablespoons in a gallon of water creates an environment that's hostile to many harmful bacteria. It's not a replacement for proper water purification, but it's an additional layer of protection when you're not completely sure about your water source. The storage is incredibly simple. Keep bottles in a cool, dark place away from temperature extremes. The plastic bottles from the store are fine for shorter-term storage, but if you're thinking long-term, transfer it to glass containers. Apple cider vinegar is acidic enough that it won't corrode properly sealed glass, and glass eliminates any concerns about plastic degradation over time. Now let's talk about something most preppers completely miss. Apple cider vinegar can help you preserve fresh vegetables through fermentation. When grocery stores are unreliable, being able to turn fresh produce into shelf-stable fermented foods becomes incredibly valuable. Simple cucumber pickles, fermented cabbage, even preserved onions. These techniques have kept people fed through difficult times for thousands of years. I keep at least 1 gallon of raw apple cider vinegar in storage at all times. For a family, I'd recommend starting with 2 gallons and building from there. The cost is minimal compared to the versatility you're getting. Plus, unlike many survival items, you can easily rotate through your apple cider vinegar supply, using it in regular cooking and health routines. Item number 5. Peanut butter. Before you roll your eyes thinking this is too obvious, let me share some facts that will change how you think about peanut butter as survival food. Natural peanut butter, the kind without added sugars and preservatives, provides one of the highest calorie-to-weight ratios of any shelf-stable food. We're talking about 190 calories per 2 tablespoon serving, packed with protein, healthy fats, and essential nutrients. But here's what makes peanut butter absolutely critical for September 2025. Peanut crops across major growing regions have been devastated this year. Georgia, which produces about half of America's peanuts, experienced severe drought followed by flooding. Argentina and China, 2 other major producers, are dealing with their own agricultural challenges. This perfect storm is already driving peanut butter prices higher, and we haven't even hit the worst of it yet. The psychological benefits of peanut butter during stressful times cannot be overstated. It's comfort food that most people, especially children, find familiar and satisfying. In a crisis when everything feels uncertain, having foods that provide emotional comfort along with nutrition becomes incredibly important for maintaining morale and mental health. Storage is straightforward but critical. Natural peanut butter without preservatives has a shorter shelf life than the heavily processed versions, usually about 2 years unopened. However, you can extend this significantly by storing jars in cool, dry conditions and rotating your stock regularly. I write purchase dates on every jar and use the oldest ones first. Here's a storage hack most people don't know. You can freeze peanut butter to extend its shelf life even further. It doesn't freeze solid due to the oil content, so you can still scoop out what you need. This technique can add years to your storage life, though you'll want to let it come to room temperature for the best texture and spreadability. For families with peanut allergies, consider alternatives like almond butter, sunflower seed butter, or tahini. These provide similar nutritional benefits and storage characteristics. The key is finding something that gives you that combination of calories, protein, healthy fats, and psychological satisfaction. I recommend storing at least 20 jars of peanut butter for a family of 4. This might seem excessive until you realize you're looking at about a 6-month supply if it becomes a daily protein source. Mix different sizes, individual serving packets for grab-and-go situations, and larger jars for regular meal preparation. Item number 6, dried corn. Most Americans think of corn as either sweet corn on the cob or popcorn for movie nights. But dried field corn, also called dent corn, is one of the most versatile and storable grains on the planet. This is the corn that feeds livestock and gets processed into countless food products, but in its whole dried form it becomes survival gold. Dried corn stores for decades when kept properly sealed and dry. It's loaded with carbohydrates for energy, contains decent amounts of protein, and provides essential minerals like magnesium and phosphorus. But versatility is where dried corn really shines. You can grind it into cornmeal for bread and polenta, cook it whole like hominy, even pop it like popcorn for a morale-boosting snack. The economic picture for corn is getting scary fast. This year's harvest is projected to be one of the worst in recent memory due to extreme weather across the Corn Belt. Flooding destroyed millions of acres of planted corn, and drought finished off much of what survived the floods. Meanwhile, demand remains high for both food and fuel production. Here's something most people don't realize about dried corn. It's one of the few grains that can sustain human life almost indefinitely if properly prepared. Traditional cultures have survived primarily on corn for thousands of years. The key is nixtamalization, a process where you treat the corn with lime or wood ash to make the nutrients more bioavailable. This prevents nutritional deficiencies that can occur with corn-heavy diets. Storage requires keeping the corn completely dry and protected from insects. Food-grade buckets with tight-fitting lids work perfectly. Add bay leaves or diatomaceous earth to deter bugs naturally. Some people use dry ice to create an oxygen-free environment, but this requires careful handling and proper ventilation. The processing equipment becomes important if you're serious about using dried corn as a staple food. A quality grain mill that can handle corn kernels is essential. Hand crank models ensure you can process corn even without electricity. The ability to turn whole kernels into cornmeal opens up dozens of recipe possibilities. For storage quantities, think about corn replacing other starches in your diet. If your family normally eats bread, pasta, and rice regularly, dried corn can substitute for much of that. I recommend starting with at least 50 pounds per person and scaling up based on your family's preferences and storage space. One more critical point about dried corn that separates the smart preppers from everyone else. Learn to cook with it now while you have access to your regular kitchen and ingredients. Experiment with different grinding levels, cooking methods, and flavor combinations. The time to figure out what works is not during an emergency when stress levels are high and mistakes have serious consequences. Item number 7, canned tomatoes. This might sound basic, but canned tomatoes are about to become liquid gold in your survival pantry. Here's why smart preppers are quietly stockpiling them right now. Tomatoes are one of the most versatile ingredients for creating satisfying, nutritious meals from simple storage foods. But more importantly, they're packed with lycopene, vitamin C, and potassium that your body desperately needs during high-stress situations. The supply situation for tomatoes is becoming critical. California produces about 95% of America's processing tomatoes, and this year's harvest has been absolutely devastated. Record-breaking heat waves followed by unexpected late-season storms have wiped out entire fields. Major processing facilities in the Central Valley are reporting crop losses of up to 60%. This isn't just affecting fresh tomatoes, it's creating a shortage of canned tomato products that will hit store shelves hard by September. But here's what makes canned tomatoes absolutely essential for your survival strategy. They transform bland storage foods into meals your family will actually want to eat. Rice and beans become hearty chili. Pasta becomes satisfying marinara. Even simple wheat berries can become a flavorful grain pilaf with canned tomatoes as the base. This isn't just about nutrition, it's about maintaining morale when everything else feels uncertain. The storage life of canned tomatoes is impressive when you buy quality brands. Look for cans without dents or rust spots and store them in cool, dry conditions. Most canned tomatoes remain safe and nutritious for 3 to 5 years past their printed dates. I've personally used canned tomatoes that were 7 years old and they tasted perfectly fine. Here's a storage strategy most people miss completely. Don't just buy one type of canned tomato product. Get crushed tomatoes for sauces, whole tomatoes for chunky dishes, tomato paste for concentrated flavor, and tomato sauce for quick meal preparation. Each serves different cooking purposes and gives you maximum flexibility when creating meals from your storage foods. The quantities matter more than you might think. For a family of 4, I recommend at least 100 cans of various tomato products. This might seem excessive until you realize you're replacing all the fresh tomatoes, pasta sauces, pizza sauces, and tomato-based soups your family normally consumes. When grocery stores become unreliable, having this foundation ingredient ensures you can still create familiar, satisfying meals. Quality makes a huge difference in both taste and storage life. Brands that use higher quality tomatoes and better processing methods generally last longer and taste better years later. San Marzano tomatoes are considered the gold standard, but even domestic brands like Hunt's and Contadina offer excellent quality for long-term storage. Item number 8, and this is the one that surprised even me during my research, powdered eggs. Most people have never even considered powdered eggs, yet they could become one of your most valuable protein sources when fresh eggs disappear from stores or become prohibitively expensive. Here's what blew my mind about powdered eggs. When properly stored, they maintain their nutritional value for up to 10 years. That's a decade of breakfast security sitting quietly in your pantry. The protein quality in powdered eggs is identical to fresh eggs. We're talking about complete proteins with all the essential amino acids your body needs to maintain muscle mass and energy levels during stressful times. 1/4 cup of powdered eggs equals about 2 fresh eggs and provides 12 grams of high-quality protein. For families with children, this becomes critically important for proper growth and development. But versatility is where powdered eggs really shine in survival situations. Obviously, you can reconstitute them with water for scrambled eggs or omelets, but you can also use them in baking without reconstituting first. Pancakes, muffins, bread, cookies all become possible even when fresh eggs aren't available. They work as binding agents in meatloaf made from canned meats. They can even be whipped into meringues for desserts that boost morale during difficult times. The economic reality around eggs is becoming frightening. Avian flu outbreaks have decimated chicken flocks across multiple states. Feed costs are skyrocketing due to grain shortages. Transportation issues are making it harder to move eggs from farms to stores efficiently. Fresh egg prices have already doubled in many areas, and industry experts are predicting even higher prices through the end of 2025. Storage requirements are minimal but critical. Keep powdered eggs in airtight containers away from moisture and heat. The original packaging is usually adequate for shorter-term storage, but for serious long-term preparation, transfer them to Mylar bags with oxygen absorbers inside food-grade buckets. This creates an environment where they'll maintain quality for years beyond their printed dates. Here's a preparation tip that makes all the difference. Don't wait until you need them to learn how to cook with powdered eggs. The texture and cooking behavior is slightly different from fresh eggs. Practice making scrambled eggs, use them in baking recipes, experiment with seasoning combinations. The time to perfect your technique is now while you have backup options available. For storage quantities, calculate based on your family's normal egg consumption. If you typically use 2 dozen eggs per week, you'll need about 15 pounds of powdered eggs to replace a year's worth of fresh eggs. This might seem like a significant upfront investment, but compare it to current egg prices and factor in the 10-year storage life. The mathematics become very compelling. One final point about powdered eggs that separates smart preppers from everyone else. They're incredibly space efficient compared to trying to raise chickens or other fresh egg sources. 50 pounds of powdered eggs takes up about the same space as a small storage tote, but provides the equivalent of 200 dozen fresh eggs. For apartment dwellers or people with limited storage space, this efficiency becomes game-changing. Item number 9, instant mashed potatoes. Before you dismiss this as processed junk food, let me share some facts that will completely change your perspective. Quality instant mashed potatoes are simply dehydrated potatoes with minimal processing. They retain most of the nutritional value of fresh potatoes while offering storage advantages that fresh potatoes simply cannot match. Potatoes are considered one of the most complete foods on the planet. You could theoretically survive on potatoes and butter alone for extended periods. They provide complex carbohydrates for sustained energy, decent amounts of protein, vitamin C to prevent scurvy, and potassium for proper muscle and heart function. In survival situations, these nutrients become absolutely critical for maintaining health and energy. The preparation advantages of instant mashed potatoes are remarkable. They reconstitute in minutes with just hot water. No peeling, no cooking time, no fuel wasted on extended preparation. In situations where cooking fuel is limited or you need to prepare food quickly, this efficiency could make the difference between eating well and going hungry. But here's where instant mashed potatoes become truly valuable for September 2025. Fresh potato crops across major growing regions have been hammered this year. Idaho, which produces about 1/3 of America's potatoes, experienced severe drought that reduced yields significantly. Wisconsin and North Dakota, 2 other major potato states, dealt with flooding and disease issues that destroyed thousands of acres. The storage characteristics are impressive when you understand proper technique. Keep instant mashed potatoes in airtight containers, away from moisture and temperature extremes. The original packaging is adequate for normal shelf life, but for extended storage, transfer them to Mylar bags with oxygen absorbers. Properly stored, they maintain quality for 5 to 8 years. Versatility extends far beyond simple mashed potatoes. You can use them as thickening agents for soups and stews. They work as binding ingredients in bread recipes. Mixed with small amounts of water, they create a dough that can be fried into potato pancakes. They can even be seasoned and baked into crispy potato chips for morale-boosting snacks. Here's a quality consideration most people overlook completely. Not all instant mashed potatoes are created equal. Brands that use real potatoes with minimal additives store better and taste more like actual potatoes. Avoid varieties with excessive artificial flavoring or preservatives that can develop off taste during long-term storage. For storage planning, consider that instant mashed potatoes can replace fresh potatoes in most of your family's favorite recipes. If you normally buy 10 pounds of fresh potatoes per month, you'll need about 30 pounds of instant mashed potatoes to cover a year. The space savings alone make this worthwhile, not even considering the convenience and extended storage life. The preparation flexibility becomes crucial during stressful situations. You can make them thick for traditional mashed potatoes, thin for soup bases, or somewhere in between for casserole ingredients. Different liquid ratios create different textures and uses. Practice these variations now so you understand the possibilities when creativity becomes necessary. Item number 10, vinegar. Most people think vinegar is just for salad dressings and cleaning, but in survival situations, vinegar becomes one of your most versatile and valuable resources. Quality vinegar has an indefinite shelf life when stored properly. We're talking about decades of utility for something that costs less than most people spend on coffee in a single day. The preservation capabilities of vinegar are legendary. It can extend the life of fresh vegetables through pickling. It creates an acidic environment that prevents spoilage in many foods. It can even be used to preserve eggs through traditional water glassing techniques that kept eggs fresh for months before refrigeration existed. But where vinegar becomes critical for your September 2025 preparation. It's one of the few substances that can make questionable foods safer to consume. The acidity kills many harmful bacteria and makes marginal ingredients more digestible. In situations where food quality becomes uncertain, having vinegar available provides an additional safety margin. The medicinal applications are extensive, though I always recommend consulting healthcare professionals when possible. Vinegar has been used traditionally for digestive issues, skin problems, and even wound care. Some people use it to maintain proper pH balance when dietary options become limited. The antimicrobial properties make it useful for basic sanitation when commercial cleaning products aren't available. Storage couldn't be simpler. Keep vinegar in glass containers away from metal that could corrode over time. The original bottles are usually adequate, but for serious long-term storage, transfer to larger glass containers to reduce air exposure. Different types of vinegar offer different benefits. White vinegar for cleaning and preservation, apple cider vinegar for health applications, and specialty vinegars for cooking variety. The economic picture for vinegar is starting to shift due to supply chain pressures on base materials. Corn-based vinegars are affected by the same crop failures impacting other corn products. Apple cider vinegar depends on apple harvests that have been disrupted by weather extremes. The smart move is stocking up now while prices remain reasonable and availability is good. For storage quantities, I recommend at least 2 gallons of mixed vinegar types per family member. This covers preservation needs, cleaning applications, and potential medicinal uses. White vinegar for heavy-duty preservation and cleaning, apple cider vinegar for health benefits, and at least 1 specialty vinegar like rice or wine vinegar for maintaining cooking variety when meal options become limited. Here's a preservation technique that could save your family from hunger when fresh food becomes scarce. Quick pickling with vinegar can turn questionable vegetables into safe, shelf-stable food in just hours. Cucumbers, onions, carrots, even green tomatoes can be transformed into pickled vegetables that last months without refrigeration. The process is simple, but the results could mean the difference between eating well and going without. Item number 11, and this final item ties everything together in a way that most preppers completely miss. Baking soda. This humble white powder sitting in your refrigerator right now could become one of your most critical survival tools. When stored properly, baking soda lasts indefinitely. Not years, not decades, forever. Yet it costs less than most people spend on a single fast food meal. The applications are staggering once you start thinking beyond baking. Baking soda neutralizes acids, which makes it invaluable for food safety when you're dealing with ingredients of questionable quality. It's a natural antacid that can settle upset stomachs when dietary stress takes its toll. Mixed with water, it creates a paste for treating insect bites and minor burns when medical supplies run low. But here's where baking soda becomes absolutely essential for your food storage strategy. It works as a leavening agent that can turn your stored wheat berries into actual bread. Without baking soda or yeast, those hundreds of pounds of grain become much less versatile. It's the difference between having flour for flatbread versus being able to create risen bread that feels normal and satisfying. There you have it, the 11 survival food items that could make all the difference when September 1st arrives and everything changes. These aren't just random suggestions. They're carefully researched essentials that provide a maximum nutrition, storage life, and versatility when normal food systems fail. The difference between those who thrive and those who struggle will come down to decisions you make right now, while these items are still available and affordable. Don't wait until panic buying begins and shelves empty overnight. Your family's security depends on the actions you take today.